this might be crazy and outlandish to say, but like if he could get fired if he loses week one, like they might make up their mind and be like, you could go win a national title and still be on the hot seat if you just lose this week one game, because it is the same thing every single year with this squad.
This is the 3 Point Stance. Today we're breaking down the LSU Tigers. Joining me is two-time Mississippi Sports Broadcaster of the Year, a Heisman voter representing the South Region, sports reporter from WLOX in Mississippi, Matt Degregorio. Thanks for joining us, Matt.
Yeah, of course, Nick.
All right, so the big story with the Tigers is that they get back senior Heisman contender quarterback Grant Nussmeier, coming off an insane 4,000-yard season with 29 passing touchdowns last season. He was tied for fifth in the country for interceptions, though, with 12. What does he need to do this year to clean it up, and who even knows, earn your Heisman vote, Matt?
Yeah, Garrett Nussmeier is like one of those guys that he's been behind one of the top offensive lines for the last year, right? Like that, like after Jaden Daniels left, and Jaden Daniels had a big time offensive line in front of him too, led by Will Campbell, who was the best offensive tackle in the nation. I mean, when Garrett came in, like they allowed like 5-6 sacks, really. I mean, legitimate coverage sacks all year. Like the team was. The offensive line there was the best in the country. They had the ability to win a national title last year. I think that there was some things that Brian Kelly didn't utilize offensively, and it started at the wide receiver position. Like the wide receivers usually in LSU have a role, right? Like you've seen over the years, Jarvis Landry, Justin Jefferson, all these guys get these roles and they're established. Like Kyron Lacey's role we never really saw what Kyron Lacey could have been. And you saw that flash in that Ole Miss game where he got the late touchdown there. But Anderson there, he's going to be a big time player for them. But yeah, Garrett Nussmeier, for him to succeed this year, like he doesn't really have the wheels that Jaden Daniels has. We saw him run a little bit, but he didn't have a lot of pressure last year, so he didn't have to escape. This year he'll have more pressure on him. I mean, LSU's schedule it's a gauntlet. Like they're gonna have to play some teams, and they're gonna have to play some of the best D lines in the country outside of the Big Ten, right? Like so you're gonna really start to see who Garrett Nussmeier is. I think a lot of people have him so highly ranked because his dad was a quarterback who played real college football. He got drafted by the Saints in the National Football League. Doug, he's now the offensive coordinator in New Orleans, just down the street. So people are high because he comes from a quarterback family, and his dad is one of the top football minds in the country, right? So all that, I mean, all that being said, like I think Garrett, like sky's the limit for the kid. Honestly, they might need him to regress to have the success that they need to get a national title. Like they have to rely more on their run game. Last year Harold Perkins was out for them for the year. He elected not to go to the draft, came back after an early knee injury. I think that's big for their defense. And I think if he runs for 5, 6, 7 touchdowns in the season, throws for 30, 40, like that's the season that they need him to have. You don't need him to be able to, move the football left, right, at center everywhere that he was doing last year. And I will say, Nick, in that Ole Miss game, which I think was the turning point for what you could see with Garrett Nussmeier's future, right? Like he was gritty in that game. He was nails. Every throw that he needed to make, he made. And when you see that kind of quarterback play, that quarterback can play. He can be a first overall pick. Is that the quarterback that we're going to see this year? We got to wait to see.
Yeah, you mentioned him, Matt. The team leader in receiving yards and receptions is back in Aaron Anderson, who's a top wide receiver in the country. He's coming off a 61 reception, 880-yard season, where he was third in the SEC in receptions. They also add Barian Brown out of the portal from Kentucky and Nick Anderson from Oklahoma. It seems like Nussmeier has weapons through the air. I guess the question is, what do you expect from the wide receivers room this year?
Yeah, I mean LSU. You might make the case that Ohio State's wide receiver U. I think that LSU's wide receiver U. When you just look at the whole body of work historically, like this isn't a new thing for them. They've been doing this for years, decades, and they produce the best wide receivers in the country year in, year out in the draft. And I mean, it's a really inexperienced room. Like they don't have the gel, like that they're not returning. Like a lot of years that you see LSU thrive is a year that you see those wide receivers pairing up for a second year. Like your Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors going into year two together, right? So all that is a little bit of a mystery for what we could see. You mentioned Anderson, like both Andersons, but Aaron, he's a guy who last year I thought could have been relied on more. You mentioned how many I think you said 61 receptions. Like that seems high. Like I didn't feel like he touched the ball that much, like as many times as that happened, but he was a real deep threat for them. Kyron Lacey was the athlete in that offense for sure, hands down. But Anderson showed flashes, and you knew that he was young out there. So I'd be interested. I don't know how many percentage or like the amount of snaps that he took per game, but I would assume that it was over 80% of the offensive snaps. This year he's probably going to be taking close to 90% of the offensive snaps. So yeah, that's a guy that he can do everything. You can put him on the outside. You can, if you need to, he'd be a bigger slot guy. You can put him in the slot. Like he's fast, quick. He's going to be a real weapon. Like he'll probably have 1,000 yards this year for LSU. And they like to have those 2,000 yard receivers. We'll see if that happens. I mentioned it a little bit ago with Nuss. Like for them to have the success that they need, like I still think the running game is key. Brian Kelly, when he's had success in the past, his run games have been so elite. They have been what brings their teams to the next level. And they really haven't had that. LSU hasn't had like that real scary back since Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like they're like, I mean, I'm sorry, but like they're a team that should be trying to rely a little bit on their run game. I get the personnel that you have there at Signal Caller, but it's just you got to be able to run the football. And last year they were at times, but nothing that was above average. They did bring in a backup quarterback, and we might talk about it in Michael Van Buren here in a second. But Van Buren is a guy who started as a true freshman last year. I think 8 games at Mississippi State. He is now going to LSU. He brings in a different package. If they decide to use him, he can go out and play. You could have two quarterbacks on the field at once. You could have him in the slot running a route or taking a quick screen. It could give teams fits because he has the ability, obviously, to take the deep shot. He almost beat University of Georgia last year. He was one heck of a player. So when you look at the body of work and the personnel that they have back there, they have the options to do a lot of things that could scare teams.
Yeah, you mentioned him earlier, running back Caden Durham, who led the team in rushing yards and receptions amongst backs. He was the number 6 running back in his class coming out of Duncanville, where he won a state title in Texas. Last year, he rushed for 750 yards and had 6 rushing touchdowns. So he had the most scrimmage yards on the team as a freshman last year. The ground game will be interesting to watch this season as well. Do you think that is important for the run game to be good to take the pressure off of Nuss?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's yeah, kind of what I've been saying. Like if Durham can have a season, he's gonna have to rush for 1,000 yards if they want to win the national title. They're sneaky, like they're not getting the respect. Like the last 2 years they've been kind of overhyped. This year, I feel like they have not gotten the respect that they deserve. They were not ranked among the top two in the SEC before the season. You had Texas, you had Georgia in there. I mean, LSU kind of felt. I think at one point they at one poll they were fifth preseason, which is outlandish to me. I think this team is a real national title contender. And I believe the reason why they're not a real national title contender is because of the history that Brian Kelly's had coaching in his last 2 seasons. They've been abysmal compared to what the expectations should have been. How can they get back to the promised land that LSU fans are used to having? It's running the football. And like I mentioned, it's wide receiver you there in Baton Rouge. But when they've had the teams that are elite, the 2019 team with Clyde, they've had these teams that are Leonard Fournette, like these running backs when they're legitimate candidates to be the best running back in the class, that's when these teams have the most success because you have to respect the run game. Teams in the past, and maybe that has to do with why Nussmeier was not sacked as much in the last year, outside of the great offensive line, but because teams didn't respect their run game. Durham, yeah, you mentioned it. Like they less than 800 yards or something like that. Like that doesn't surprise me at all. I felt like they never ran the ball. Nussmeier was throwing the ball 50 times a game. If you're a defense all you have to do is prepare for the pass. I mean, you make sure that you're only covering a one-dimensional offense like that. It's not going to win you a lot of football games in the Southeastern Conference. So if I'm a coach and I'm looking at it like if I'm in Brian Kelly's shoes, I say, I mean, you have to be able to run the football. And Durham's a solid back. He's the 6th running back in the class. LSU, like they haven't had that guy, like I said, in 5-6 years. So how do you get back to that point? And bringing back a running back like Durham is critical.
Something that will win you games in the Southeastern Conference is having 8 returning starters come back on your defense, with one of them being Harold Perkins, who's coming off an ACL tear from early last year in the UCLA game. Prior to last year's injury, in his 2 years, Perkins had 13 sacks, 26 tackles for losses, while leading the team in both those categories those seasons. They're also bringing back first-team All-SEC linebacker Whit Weeks. He was second in the SEC and ninth in the country in total tackles. So they have one of the best returning linebackers room in the country. What do we expect out of the Tigers defense this season, Matt?
Yeah, that Tigers defense is gonna be deadly. Yeah, I mean, you just talked about Whit Weeks and Harold Perkins. Like that is the best linebacker duo in the country. And Harold Perkins, I thought there was a real chance that he was going to declare for the NFL draft despite getting injured. The fact that he's going back to Baton Rouge says something to me because I think he truly believes they can win a national title there. He is the best linebacker in the country. So if he doesn't get hurt there, I think there was some serious consideration that he could have been the number one overall pick if he had not gotten injured. Like he's that good. And Whit Weeks there, I mean, man, like if you wanted another guy to be able to step up next to Landry, like he is, or next to Perkins, excuse me, like he is the guy that you want. Whit Weeks is maybe linebacker number 2 behind Harold Perkins in the SEC. Like that is the linebacker tandem that you want. And I'll tell you, like as far as like the front 7 for LSU, right? Their D line this year is going to be exceptional. I'm really excited to see what they can do there. They had some defensive coaching personnel changes, so we're gonna you're gonna have to look back and you're gonna have to assess it. But yeah, they got rid of some of the defensive staffers. I believe the DC is new this year, so all of that you got to consider there. But I do really like what the Tigers bring to the table from an all-around standpoint. Also, I mean, I also want to mention their special teams. Like their kick coverage, I believe, was number 1 in the SEC last year, if I'm not mistaken. Their kicker, I think it's Ramos. He was good. I mean, solid. I never saw him miss a kick. I was at 3 of their games, never saw him miss a kick. So I like they're an exciting young team to watch.
Yeah, you mentioned him along with Whit Weeks. Harold Perkins, talk about how great he is just overall in general and what he means to the LSU defense.
Yeah, Harold Perkins is LSU football. He is everything that defines that program, and the fact that he is coming back this year, Nick, is special. Like I think that LSU fans are really taking this as like a gift almost because, like I mentioned, he could have been the first overall pick last year. He is that good. And with Perkins coming back into the fold, like there is some real hope that defense could be the number 1 scoring defense in the SEC, along with the number 1 scoring offense in the SEC. That is kind of what he's going to bring to the table. Not kind of, that is what he's going to bring to the table. And Whit Weeks he's a gamer. Like those 2 guys in the center, miking the defense. That's the best linebacker tandem in the country. If you can look at it and as an outsider and say, all right, who like, because you could have Perkins in pass coverage, you could have Whit Weeks in pass coverage if needed. They can also play edge if needed. Like that's special when you have 2 guys who can do that at an elite level. So that defense, like I said, going to be scary.
Yeah, the secondary is stacked too with Ashton Stamps in his junior year. He led the SEC and was second in the country in pass breakups with 12. They also bring in Mansour Delane through the portal from Virginia Tech, where he had 4 interceptions and 2 forced fumbles last season. He's played 33 games with the Hokies and Virginia Tech. He looks to complement Stamps on the outside, but the Tigers will also get back senior free safety Jordan Gilbert and get A.J. Halsey in the transfer portal from Houston. Halsey led the team at Houston in interceptions and pass breakups. He was also tied for 4th in the country in interceptions. But this seems to be a good spot for the secondary of the Tigers. They bring in a few transfers in the secondary. Should we expect them to improve from last season, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, you can't be much worse than what they were a year ago. I like teams just kept looking, taking shots at them. That was a real problem. Like I mean, I felt like teams were never out of the game against the Tigers because of the fact that if you take 2 shots on them, you can complete them for big gains, maybe a touchdown. And that was their kryptonite, right? Like if you had a team that came in and was a run heavy team, they got lazy back there. They were a team that got very complacent. And that was really frustrating if you were an LSU fan to see that because like if you had to honor a big time run and last year, like you lose Harold Perkins up the middle, something like that. That did leave them a little weak in the linebacker core. So teams would break off long runs against them, and so I mean, it made teams focus on the run game so that you don't let off that 60 plus yard touchdown, right? And when that happens, your secondary can get a little lazy. And that was the case last year. I think that's why you saw defensive coaching personnel changes. Like there was like that was a real frustration. Like you just never knew which LSU defense was going to show up last year. And yeah, the reason why their guys had so many pass breakups was because they were targeted a million times a game. Like you're going to put up numbers if you just continuously get the ball thrown your way. And that was the case last year. And so how do you transform that, and how do you transition into having a better secondary? You go out, get guys in the portal, and that's what they did.
Yeah, so the Tigers should see some improvements in the secondary. But up front for the Tigers defense, they bring in four new faces. Defensive ends, Jack Pryburn from Florida and Patrick Payton from Florida State are brought in through the transfer portal, along with first-year starter defensive tackles Dominic McKinley and senior defensive tackle Jacobian Guillory. With four new faces, do you think they will struggle, or do you think they will be a good unit this season against the run, specifically with Perkins and Whit Weeks in that front seven?
Yeah, I don't. I think that like with a new coaching regime in there, like they're gonna I think be ready to go. I've seen some of the tape from spring practice and all that. Like they've looked the part. Their defense is live and die by that front seven. But yeah, like there's a real thought. There's a real thought that LSU's defense could be great.
Yeah, let's talk about the coaches, Matt. Brian Kelly starts his fourth season as the head coach of the Tigers and is 29-11 since taking over in 2022. Last season was the first season since 2016 that Kelly did not win 10 or more games in a season. What does Brian Kelly need to do this season to bring the Tigers to the playoffs, or who knows, maybe even go all the way, Matt?
Well, he's got to win week one first. Like that's critical. There, if you don't win week one, you just set the precedent that you were the same old Brian Kelly LSU Tigers, and they're gonna have to win that game. He knows it. Like I mean, this might be crazy and outlandish to say, but like if he could get fired if he loses week one, like they might make up their mind and be like, you could go win a national title and still be on the hot seat if you just lose this week one game, because it is the same thing every single year with this squad. You have the guys to go win week one. If you can't do that, then get out, because we're paying you a ridiculous sum of money. You have brought in every piece that we've asked you to bring in, or that you've asked us to bring in, that you've asked us to invest all this money. You've landed all these big time transfers. You've landed all these big time recruits. You have one of the best quarterbacks in the country. What else will it take for you to coach a team that's going to win a national title? For you to coach a team that's going to win week one? Like that's where LSU's they're very frustrated over there. They just brought in an assistant general manager in Kelvin Bolden, who was at Ole Miss, and Bolden was tremendous at Ole Miss. He is a recruiting like icon right now. Like he is that guy that he's a gem. He is widely considered one of the top recruiters in this region of the country. This footprint, it belongs to Kelvin Bolden. And the fact that they go get him from a rival in Ole Miss and they bring him in as their assistant general manager shows me that they're trying to do everything possible to have every top recruit in this area, in this region, on the LSU Tigers so that they can win a championship.
Yeah, this LSU team is tricky for me to get a gauge on. I see a couple tough away games at Ole Miss, Oklahoma, and Alabama, along obviously with the week one matchup at Clemson. It's a tough away schedule, but they do get Texas A&M, Florida, and South Carolina at home. So, I mean, they could go anywhere from 5-3 to even 7-1 in the SEC if they can win a game against an Alabama or an Oklahoma. What do you got for this Tigers team this year, Matt?
LSU is the toughest team in the SEC for me to gauge, because you look at Florida, young quarterback DJ Lagway. You look at Lenora Sellers at South Carolina, young quarterback who's going to go in the draft, but they have to go on the road for almost all of their tough games, right? LSU has a good mix. They got to go to Oxford. I don't know if that's going to be a win for them. That's going to be a tough game. 2 years ago in Oxford, the two teams played one of the best college football games that we've seen in quite some time. Now, like if you look at what they should do, they should win 9 or 10 games. They should be able to beat Oklahoma. They should be able to bring Texas A&M in, host them, and win that game. I just struggle to get a gauge until I see them play week one. Because if they lose week one, you could see a dumpster fire there. Like you could see everything collapse. playoffs. And if Brian Kelly knows he has to make the playoffs. Like with the amount of money that they've spent there and the amount of expectations that this team has, he has to win 10 games. He has to go to the playoffs. He has to be a national title contender, right? And I'll tell you, media and coaches alike do not have faith that he's going to do that. There's no confidence in that because he has not done it yet at LSU. And if that continues to be the case this year, I think he's out. And they have a very favorable-esque way that this schedule is going to play out for them. They play the young quarterbacks that are supposed to be elite in the conference at home. You play A&M, who's going to have one heck of a defense at home. You get to go to Oxford with an Ole Miss team who we don't know what they're going to be. You get to face Oklahoma. I mean, that's going to be a real test for them, right? Like I don't know what Oklahoma is going to be, but LSU should beat that team. Like on paper, there's no reason LSU should lose that game. And so yeah, like you look at the way their schedule plays out, 10 wins should be the expectation. It should be the expectation in Baton Rouge every year when you're spending the millions and millions of dollars that they spend on that team, and the millions and millions of dollars that they spend on Brian Kelly to be the coach. He has every staffer in there basically handpicked for year in, year out. Like there's no excuse there. And so anything short of a second, third round playoff berth or a national champion, like that's a disappointment. That's a failure. And I believe that if that does not happen, he's out.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. All eyes will be on Brian Kelly and the Tigers this year in the SEC. But thanks for sticking around. Click the video on your screen to watch another team breakdown.